Chapter 3, Part 2. His father continued, "And I see all too little of you during the day. You seldom give us the pleasure of your company until twilight." "I have my studies and devotions in my own rooms, sir," said Catherine quietly, her lashes dropping. Stephen knew this was not true, but he said nothing. He would never betray Catherine's secret. She looked up at his father again. "But I am here now, sir." Yes, that is true. And I must see that tonight we have a very special meal for your father's return. Damon, we will speak later." As Giuseppe motioned to a servant and strode out, Stephen turned to Catherine in delight. It was seldom they could speak to each other without the presence of his father or of Gudrun, her stolid German maid. But what Stephen saw then was like a blow to his stomach. Catherine was smiling, the little secret smile that she had often shared with him. But she was not looking at him, she was looking at Damon. Stephen hated his brother at that moment, hated Damon's dark beauty and grace and the sensuality that drew women to him like moths to a flame. He wanted in that instant to strike Damon, to smash that beauty to pieces. Instead, he had to stand and watch as Catherine moved slowly toward his brother, step by step, her golden brocade gown whispering on the tiled floor. And even as he watched, Damon held out a hand to Catherine and smiled, the cruel smile of triumph. Stephen turned away from the window sharply. Why was he reopening old wounds? But even as he thought it, he drew out the slender gold chain he wore under his shirt. His thumb and forefinger caressed the ring that hung from it. Then he held it up to the light. The little circlet was exquisitely worked in gold, and 5 centuries had not dimmed its luster. It was set with one stone, a lapis, the size of his little fingernail. Stephen looked at it, then at the heavy silver ring, also set with lapis, on his own hand. In his chest was a familiar tightness. He could not forget the past, and he didn't really wish to. Despite everything that had happened, he cherished Catherine's memory. But there was one memory he must truly not disturb. One page of the journal he must not turn. If he had to relive that horror, that abomination, he would go mad, as he had been mad that day, that final day when he had looked up upon his own damnation. Stephen leaned against the window, his forehead pressed to its coolness. His tutor had another saying, "Evil will never find peace. It may triumph, but it will never find peace." Why had he even come to Fell's Church? He had hoped to find peace here, but that was impossible. He would never be accepted. He would never rest. Because he was evil, he would not change what he was. Elena was up even earlier than usual that morning. She could hear Aunt Judith pottering about in her room, getting ready for her shower. Margaret was still fast asleep, curled up like a little mouse in her bed. Elena passed her younger sister's half-open door noiselessly and continued down the hallway to let herself out of the house. The air was fresh and clear this morning. The quince tree was inhabited only by the usual jays and sparrows. Elena, who had gone to bed with a throbbing headache, lifted her head to the clean blue sky and breathed deeply. She felt much better than she had yesterday. She'd promised to meet Matt before school, and though she wasn't looking forward to it, she was sure it was going to be all right. Matt lived only 2 streets away from the high school. It was a simple frame house like all the others on that street, except that maybe the swing on the porch was a little shabbier, the paint a little more peeled. Matt was already standing outside, and for a moment her heart picked up at the sight of him as it used to. He was good-looking, there was no doubt about that. Not in the stunning, almost disturbed way that some people were, but in a healthy American way. Matt Honeycutt was all American. His blonde hair was cropped short for the football season, and his skin was sunburnt from working outdoors on his grandparents' farm. His blue eyes were honest and straightforward, and just today, as he held out his arms to hug her gently, they were a little sad. You want to come inside? No, let's just walk, Elena said. They went side by side without touching. Maples and black walnut trees lined the street, and the air still had a morning hush. Elena watched her feet on the wet sidewalk, feeling suddenly uncertain. She didn't know how to start after all. So you still haven't told me about France, he said. Oh, it was great, said Elena. She glanced sideways at him. He was looking at the sidewalk, too. Everything about it was great, she continued, trying to put some enthusiasm in her voice. The people, the food, everything. It was really... Her voice trailed off, and she laughed nervously. Yeah, I know. Great, he finished for her. He stopped and stood looking down at his scuffed tennis shoes. Elena recognized them from last year. Matt's family barely got by. Maybe he hadn't been able to afford new shoes. She looked up to find those steady blue eyes on her face. You know, you look pretty great right now, he said. Elena opened her mouth in dismay, but he was speaking again. And I guess you have something to tell me? She stared at him and smiled, a crooked, rueful smile. Then he held out his arms again. Oh, Matt, she said, hugging him hard. She stepped back to look into his face. Matt, you are the nicest guy I've ever met, and I don't deserve you. Oh, so that's why you're dumping me, said Matt, as they started walking again. Because I'm too good for you? I should have realized that before. She punched him in the arm. No, that's not why. And I'm not dumping you. We're going to be friends, right? Oh, sure. Oh, absolutely. Because that's what I've realized we are. She stopped looking up at him again. Good friends. Be honest now, Matt. Isn't that how you really feel about me? He looked at her, then rolled his eyes heavenward. Can I take the fifth on that? He said. As Elena's face fell, he added, It doesn't have anything to do with that new guy, does it? No, Elena said after hesitation, and then added quickly, I haven't even met him yet. I don't know him. But you want to. No, don't say it. He put an arm around her and gently turned her. Come on. Let's head towards school. If we have time, I'll buy you a donut. As they walked, something thrashed in the walnut tree. Okay, this will be another part coming up.